Now we have a presentation from Anastasiya Shtaltovna. I hope I said it right. I'm sorry. And it was very surprising, and it was very. I was very glad to receive your email because Anastasiya is a CEF alumni, which is great. And as I read, she has been doing a very impressive job on gender, working since from Canada. I understand in the Parliamentary Center there. So you will tell us more about your work. If you want to share your screen, please go ahead. Okay. And meanwhile, I just will name the title of Anastasiya's presentation. It is Comparison and Reflection on Ethnographic Fieldwork by two female researchers in Asia. Looks very promising. So please, Anastasiya.
Hope to meet your expectations, but yeah, I'll do my best. Thanks, Denise. Okay, hi everyone. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm happy to be back at CEF. I'm a fan of CEF, so it was a great opportunity to connect. Happy to see many faces I know, and hi to all students. So I'll start sharing my screen and briefly tell you about myself. Okay, sharing. Okay. Yeah. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, is it all okay? I don't know. So very briefly about myself, I did PhD with CEF A and conducted ethnographic fieldwork, and I also did postdoc with CEF. So altogether I spent around 6 years with CEF A, and it was a great time of my life. And the most part of my work at CEF I loved because I had the chance to conduct a lot of fieldwork in Asia and in the Caucasus. But in this paper, I will focus mainly on Asia because my PhD was on Uzbekistan and postdoc on Tajikistan and Kazakhstan. So basically, together with another CEF A graduate, Farah Purvanin-Grum, she also conducted ethnographic research in other part of Asia. So basically, we, after having worked a lot in Asia, conducted a lot of research with CEF and after CEF. Also, while still at CEF, every year when we came back from fieldwork, we came together with students and shared our stories. How went the fieldwork? What went wrong? What went good? You know, sharing the story. We have a lot of memories about those things. And at some point with Farah, when we left CEF, we thought, okay, it would be, given that we have so much memories and reflections, maybe it's a good idea to write it down for those who will conduct research, and maybe they can benefit from our experience. So basically, this paper we wrote, it's a comparison and reflection on ethnographic fieldwork by two female researchers in Asia, with a connection to the topic of today's seminar. So the two main questions of this paper is, first is, how did our positions in the context of political structures and local cultures enabled or hindered fieldwork in Asia? So here basically we draw on literature on positionality and intersectionality, which was earlier mentioned. And the second question is basically how each of us, being a female with a set of other characteristics, how did it hinder or enable our work in Asia? This is first question. And second question, how did we negotiate in the light of the political cultures and political structures and local cultures? Basically, what were our negotiation strategies in order to gain reliable ethnographic data for our PhDs or other papers? So while answering the first, it's, as I said, we came together to compare our research in Asia. I mainly work, as I said, on Central Asia, and my colleague Farah, she worked on Indonesia and Brunei. I won't go into detail on talking about these countries, but the underlying points of these regions is these are overarching state ideologies, and all these countries are part of the Muslim world. Basically, it's a men's world. And 90% of our respondents on people we had to work with were male. So answering the first question is on our positionality as a researcher. We draw a lot on the literature on inside, the outside the position, but I don't present it here. I just want to more bring to the to the research results. So Farah, in her research in Indonesia, obviously she had the native position because she was local, and also she like her nationality, ethnicity, speaking the local language, her inherited understanding of the context, and her training and religion, like gave her this native position and enabled her to collect high-level ethnographic data while her fieldwork in Indonesia. When doing research in Brunei, due to her religion and the fact that she was Javanese, which was one of the sub-ethnic groups in Brunei, she was often seen as Malay, but she wasn't really local. So there she had some kind of middle ground position. Then briefly, while talking about me, I neither was in Central Asia, neither was I an insider or outsider. And this, of course, comes from the point that my nationality is Ukraine, but the work I did in Central Asia, like what connected us is that over 70 years, our countries were in the Soviet Union. So basically we shared the strong, like this history. So, we had this common history and legacies of Soviet Union. So just people who lived through this period could kind of, reflect and remember it. Another point is, of course, speaking Russian, that I still speak Russian and people in Central Asia speak Russian, which also gave me a chance to approach and talk easily with people. And then also, again, having different religion from the local religions, which is in Central Asia, these people are all Muslim and I was a Christian. And also being a female researcher, I think actually enabled me to really better submerge in the society and collect high-level data. But as a summary on the positionality, I had this in-between or middle ground position. As I said, not being really from the region, but at the same time, I shared a lot of characteristics which would make me more of an insider rather than like a foreign researcher. So I will demonstrate to you how our positions in the field facilitated or impeded research in those countries. So first, I will reflect on Farah's work in Indonesia and in Brunei. So what were her negotiation strategy to get access to data and to have success with her work? So Indonesia pursued a state ideology of Pancasila, recognizing Indonesia's pluralistic multicultural society. Thus, her fluent Indonesian inherited understanding of the culture, use of different methodologies for data collections, and her international training allowed her to get the very reliable data while she was in Indonesia. However, in Brunei, it was a little bit different. Brunei presented more of a closed society for Farah. Social science research hasn't been a predominant theme in Brunei. So the research there was more difficult for her. So what did she do to overcome those difficulties? So first of all, she learned the Brunei Malay language. Thus, she was often seen as a local or a Malaysian in Brunei. Then spending time in the field also allowed her to gain a view of Malay culture and to understand the local context. All of this allowed her to grasp and to get a first-hand account of data collection. And then also in Brunei, respondents displayed a tendency not to answer questions that were political in nature. This made social science research very difficult. So Farah dealt with the situation by refraining from asking political sensitive questions. And in addition, she decided to distance herself from the public or government sector in Brunei. So these are like a few quasi negotiations, how my colleague or me, we went around to kind of get access to interviewees and to the data. Then secondly, again, on Farah's work. So during her work in Indonesia and Brunei, for the purpose of research, there were instances where men responded to her with silence due to her gender because she was a woman. Furthermore, she was unable to engage in direct eye-to-eye contact. During her everyday work in Brunei, she was constantly reminded that intermixing between different genders is not allowed. To deal with the situation, Farah was supported by her research assistant in order to deal with the limitations concerning follow-up questions. And her research assistant happened to be a female, and this strategy was very helpful for her in altering the interview session from a female to male event to one comprising 2 female and a male. So this helped her decrease possible tensions. Thus, she was able again to get answers despite her limitations. So these are just a few examples of Farah's work. Now, because of due to the limitations of time, I cannot elaborate on Southeast Asia, and I will move to my work on Central Asia. So how did I go about on my work in Central Asia? So I will briefly mention that I did research about agriculture, knowledge in agriculture in Central Asia and Uzbekistan. And if maybe some of you know that cotton was a very politically sensitive topic in Uzbekistan, that Uzbek government maintains strong control over agricultural production. So this political aspect of cotton production in Uzbekistan had an immediate impact on research conducted there. Any social or political scientists were not welcome in the country. So thus, while deciding to conduct social science research in Uzbekistan, one has to initially find a way to enter the country and then to carefully pick the research strategy in order to be able to work there. So what did I do? What helped me to do my work in Uzbekistan? First of all, as some of you know, we had this big project. So I work in the frames of the project in Uzbekistan. If I were a sole researcher, it would be pretty much impossible to do this politically sensitive research. So this was a plus. Then again, my origin played a role. I have to elaborate maybe a little bit more, like people who work in agriculture and cotton, they are super afraid to talk about any problems related to agriculture. So they didn't even want to talk to you. But still, when I tried to approach them for the interviews, they could see that I'm from Ukraine, and many of the farmers during the Soviet times, they were in military or in recreation, like sanatories in Ukraine. So they had this very positive and fond memories of their Soviet times. So they were curious to talk to me. So this helped me really to open doors and to have a conversation with people. They were also curious to know how agriculture developed in Ukraine since the end of Soviet Union. Also, given that there was like a control of access to media in Uzbekistan. People, and they don't know much what's going on like much further in the world. They were really curious to know through me, through my knowledge, how agriculture is developed in Germany. Just having said this, that the people were curious and wanted to talk to me, yeah? They were not afraid anymore. And of course, this allowed me to build trust with them, to build conversation. And of course, I could get data for my research. And second, as I mentioned, yeah, speaking Russian was also very helpful for me. I could have a first-hand account of many of the information. Then again, adapting of research strategies. As I said, when I came to Uzbekistan, you could see people don't really want to talk to you. They're afraid to talk about politics. And then I said, okay, one interview is good, but if you meet people more often, it will help you to build trust and maybe get more reliable data. So I adapted my research strategies, and I decided I'll do internships in the organizations. So I picked 3 organizations where I stayed more than between 1 to 2 months, which allowed me to meet people on the daily basis, to observe their daily activities, to interact with them, to see what they're working, which really embedded me in the whole context of this political agriculture. And allowed to build trust. So these are very important points, which really allowed me to collect very high level and like very qualitative info, like data for my research. Next, what allowed me to work in Uzbekistan was to hire a local expert. And this person in Uzbekistan was always someone who knew the agriculture sector very well and who worked for the state organization at the same time. So those 2 properties were crucial in getting access to legal data on agriculture and to statistical data. Also getting interviews with important people working in the government. Those who are usually busy and don't want to talk to foreigners or researchers. So those local experts were always men. They often accompanied me to the interviews. They would ensure that interviewee shows up to the interview and talks to me, and also take care of my security. Other points, I would say, I also have hired a research assistant or translator, someone who would help me accessing respondents and accessing data in Uzbek language, which I couldn't understand. Also, researchers, like a researcher was, it's also played the role also of my ears in the places where I wasn't present. For example, when we did internships in the organization, when I did observation in one room or talk to one people, the research assistant, one in the other room, and could help me to get a grasp of what was going on. The next point to reflect upon is the gender of the researcher really makes a difference. For the first year, I had a male assistant, and it was the male assistant, unfortunately, in Uzbekistan was less trusted than the female. He was considered a governmental spy, unfortunately. So when I was coming with him to some meetings, people wouldn't want to talk. And also, however, he played the role of a gatekeeper and ensured my safety in some situations, yeah. And again, finally, cooperation between the researcher and assistant based on professionalism and friendship had a positive outcome on our research output and working environment. So these are a few things I wanted to reflect upon on my work on Uzbekistan. And maybe I'll briefly note reflect on my work in Kazakhstan and Tajikistan. Given that cotton wasn't like a politically sensitive topic in those countries, it was relatively easy to conduct research there. So in both cases, in Kazakhstan or Tajikistan, you, like before going to the country, you really need to find a local partner for establishing initial contacts and getting access to some governmental officials. Or in Tajikistan, it was good to have like a university contact who would help you to do the official letter to do research. And from there on, it rolled out. You could, basically, it was easy to meet people. Again, I spoke Russian. People like to talk to someone who was in Soviet Union. So all the things, again, played out very positively for me. Of course, there were some negative aspects, but I don't have time to reflect on them now. I hope that this is of some help and interest to you. Thank you.